SelfHateBeats.com.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to my channel. I'm grateful to have you all watching this video today. In today's video, we're discussing the topic of whether or not black conservatives hate themselves. The title of this video is, do black conservatives really hate themselves? And I'm glad to get into this topic today, especially because as a black man in America myself, who oftentimes I listen to both sides and both perspectives of African Americans in the United States of America. And one thing I can honestly say is that this is a topic that I wanted to talk about just simply based off, or I chose to talk about it, or choose to talk about it because of, some things or some talking points I disagree with, especially with the black people who are far liberal or far left, right? And have no idea, what they're talking about, not even making sense of, really how to understand and relate to other people that are of the melanin, but just have and choose a different perspective of life. So let's get to it, right? When it comes to self-hate, what is self-hate, right? Self-hate, we look at, or the real definition of self-hate is someone who just does not like themselves, someone who dislikes characteristics about themselves, who they are, where they're from, even sometimes what they represent, right? But when I look at black people and how they describe self-hate within the black community, it's oftentimes referred to as someone who doesn't identify as black because they disagree with certain talking points, or they date a certain way, or they tend to live a certain lifestyle that does not represent anything of what blackness represents, right? Or whatever blackness is supposed to mean. And then a lot of times, you get these negative terms and you're called out your name, you're disrespected by people of your own community because you don't take on the talking points, the viewpoints that they have, right? And so when I look at, black conservatives, right, some of the main ones you can talk about are Officer Tatum, Candace Owens, and many others out there that have conservative values or conservative views in the black community, but they choose not to represent the far left of the black community. In some cases, or more cases than one, I can understand why, right? But some examples that some black people who tend to be far left or just loony about their talking points and views, if you're a black person or a black woman, right, a black person in general rather, and you talk with a sense, you talk like you have common sense, right? You talk with proper English, right? You actually pronunciate your words, and you actually take the time to listen, to understand, rather than just, hearing and reacting. Like, you're oftentimes referred to someone that is black, talking with common sense or proper English. And in the black community, it's almost seen as if, only white people can do it. So what do they say? Oh, you're talking white. So now that's a talking point of being someone that hates themselves, because now you're trying to represent what white culture is about, as if talking eloquently or with proper etiquette is only a white person thing. These talking points have been going on for years, so I'm just kind of using that as an example. If you're a black person that you choose to watch anime, right? You're not into the black cultural, things that, like certain music or certain movies, entertainment, or you're someone that you don't really, associate with, a lot of black friends, and you choose, a different culture of people to hang around, somehow you get told that, you hate yourself, right? When in reality, you could be just someone that's just different. You have a different set of standards or things that you, or a different set of interests that interest you. But more on the political side, when I look at, black conservatives, right? I'll bring up some talking points that we can go into why, blacks who are not conservative look at black people who are conservative as people who hate themselves. And one of the main things is the Carmelo Anthony case that happened with Carmelo Anthony in terms of how he stabbed the white dude, at the track meet. Now, people are going to have their perspective on it, but a lot of the perspective for black people who are on the liberal side tend to think that, it's justifiable. White people have been killing blacks for years, and it's okay. It's justifiable for another black man just to go kill an innocent white kid for no reason, right? But then at the same time, we turn it around. You look at the black conservatives saying, well, no, that white dude didn't do anything. The white kid didn't deserve to get stabbed the way he did, and it oftentimes get reversed as, okay, now you're siding with the white man. Oh, so now you just hate yourself, right? And you look at it from a perspective, and you say, well, from a right and wrong perspective, one, you're not taking accountability, right? And I'm not saying we should shame anyone, right? Shaming people nowadays it's asinine. It's like, what is shaming someone gonna do, right? But one, you lack accountability. Two, whenever you try to use something as the term of self-hate, you're just someone who disagrees with black people. You hate yourself and things like that. It's like, no, right and wrong still exists in the system, in the world that we live in today. And we can sit around and we can, the system has always been against the black man or the black people, the black race. But nowadays things are different, and one of the main reasons why I look at black conservatives and I understand some of the talking points is because of how unruly and ruthless a lot of black people are today, right? Not all, right? Every black person you come across isn't that way. But I'm talking more along the lines of those who grow up in environments where they're running around, they're shooting and killing other black people, robbing, molesting, taking advantage of other black children, black school environments all the times, and the urban communities aren't always safe. There was a talking point someone brought up, I saw this Instagram clip where you literally had a black female playing a black dude talking about why they shouldn't send their black kids to predominantly white schools or predominantly white institutions. And they talked about how some of those black kids experience racism, how those black kids are ostracized, how those black kids are bullied and disrespected and, ignored in classrooms. And I say, it's funny because, while there may be cases like that happen, more often than not, I see it more go on in the black community. Someone who attended a black school, predominantly black school, I saw kids get bullied. I saw kids who, had a problem with just how to treat others, right? A lot of times I see kids who grew up who didn't get, they didn't get their ass beat enough to understand how to learn how to treat each other with respect. Black people in America today, one thing that bothers me about our culture, about our race, is that we love to talk about racism and the white supremacist structure that we have going on within our country, and how black people are oppressed, how black people, don't get the respect and the value of one another, that we truly deserve from the white people or people of other races and so on and so forth. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be respected because, not because I'm not saying you shouldn't be respected, right, just because of the color of your skin. But what I see today, especially in the black communities, you have black folks that will disrespect each other, take advantage of each other, rob each other's homes, curse each other out, high divorce rate. We got all kind of single mother households going on, men not respecting the women don't respect themselves or each other, and then the list goes on and on and on, right? But then you look at black people who try to represent themselves well, who disagree and have different talking points, And you want to call them lame. You want to say they hate themselves, so on and so forth, right? But then when it comes to other, talking points, who within the workplace, like say you see someone black who experiences, something where he deals with a boss that is white and he feels like he is being taken advantage of. But then you have another black person who has a different perspective and they feel like, nah, no, my experiences are fine. And I'm not, there's nothing wrong with, the job, the place I'm working at, and, making good money, I'm enjoying my life, so on and so forth. And yet, somehow, because he disagrees with that other brother, somehow that becomes a talking point. Oh, well, you just hate yourself. Oh, well, there's something wrong with you, because, you're not taking on the plight of racism and coating that around and trying to play victim, right? You're trying to pretty much use the black victim card today, right? And what I don't understand about black people in America today is that there are a lot of entertainers, doctors, lawyers, educators who are successful, right? Some of which are conservative, some of which who don't agree with the talking points of the left, of playing the victim card. But you'll say that you're oppressed as a black person, right? For those that do it and that say it. And then all in the same breath, not realize that you weren't put in chains. You weren't the ones being taken off ships, beaten with whips, chains. You weren't the ones that were molested, being shot at, being taken advantage of, so on and so forth. Now, you can bring up instances of police brutality and still question, certain things, in terms of, how blacks are treated by police. But at the same time, there are instances where I look at black people and I'm like, and, in some cases, it's not, I'm not saying you deserve it, but you coerce, the actions of those that are in law enforcement to treat you the way that you do, right? And I say that just because of how they carry themselves, how certain people carry themselves. But yet, when we look at black conservatives, we want to sit up here on platforms and talk about, how they hate themselves because they choose a different identity other than, what blackness truly is. And I've always questioned, what is true blackness? Because I've gone around HBCUs, right? I attended, as someone who attended an HBCU, which is a complete waste of time. As someone who was around a black environment, right? Predominantly black neighborhoods, so on and so forth. One thing that bothered me or that stuck with me was we always talked about blackness. And blackness today, it isn't, a culture of acceptance. It's not a culture of where you accept and love everybody the way that you want to promote it to. It's a culture of you accept people for who they are as long as they accept the values, whether they're good or bad, and the negative stereotypes that go alongside with what it is that you're okay with. And when I see, black people who talk about, oh, you don't accept your blackness, some of the talking points, some of the things are, some of the examples of blackness literally make no sense. Like the music that's out there today. A lot of the rap music I don't even listen to in today's day and age, right? It's retarded. A lot of it doesn't sound like it has common sense behind it. A lot of it is just pointless, right? Blackness. We look at someone who's educated and who sounds intelligent, especially for a lot of young African American boys. We look at young African American boys and we say, "Oh, you're educated. You're intelligent. You sound like you have proper etiquette. You know what you're talking about." We look at that guy, we call him lame. Like blackness is someone who walks around nowadays sagging their pants, playing the victim card. Either you're an athlete, a rapper, entertainer, someone who can be used as pretty much a pawn or token that can be controlled by the people. Someone that can be controlled and used as someone that represents the people, because blackness in a sense is something that we should all embrace, no matter the negative stereotypes or the talking points that people have, right? And you could be someone that disagrees with a lot of the politics that go on in the black community, but because you disagree, right? Oh, now you no longer have a black card. There's something wrong with you, right? You're a sellout. You're a coon, and all these different things. So when I look at black people who call black conservatives self-hating oh, you just hate yourself. It's like, no, some of the talking points they do have actually do make sense, right? I'm not saying that to, say that everything they say, makes sense, or I'm not gonna say it doesn't make sense, but I'm not saying you have to always agree, right? But when I look at the black community, you go in on black conservatives and say, well, you could disagree with a talking point with them when it comes to racism or whatever the case may be, but then you'll get angry at them because, oh, you're just trying to defend the white man. All you want is white acceptance. You want to be a pick me for them. You want to be valued by them. But then, in retrospect, when I look at black people who are all about their blackness, right? And you point out what they're wrong about. You point out their flaws and where they need to be held accountable, and they got all kind of hate against you, right? They want to disrespect you, call you out of your character, so on and so forth. And then now it becomes a talking point of as, well, now you just hate yourself, right? Now you're someone that you don't value other black people, and so on and so forth. So at the end of the day, just thinking about some of these talking points and, just listening to some of the videos, some of the content that's out there, a lot of it doesn't make sense to me. A lot of it is just a bunch of people who just ramble on and, you call each other lame, for being educated, and especially the young boys, right? As I mentioned, minutes ago. But then you'll throw a party for guys that are, getting out of prison, guys that are, that have just gotten home for, committing all kind of, for committing, God knows how many crimes, and you'll get upset for, a young female going to jail, being held accountable. You'll be okay with debauchery because, oh, you had sex with, 20 guys, and it's okay for you to have 20 different abortions, but then you want to say, oh, you want to bring up a talking point of, oh, they're just trying to wipe off, the black race, and it's like, no, you're doing that to yourself, right? I would say the stats pretty much show what it is. Statistics, show something different outside of your talking points, right? And I'm not saying, that, like, for example, we have, crime, for an example, right? We like to say, well, black men and black women, black people in general, are the face of crime in America when we don't commit all the crimes. And let's say that is the case, right? But when I see other groups of people, who commit crimes, I've seen them be held accountable. And the black men, I personally have seen people of other race be held accountable, right? Be, told that, hey, what you're doing is wrong. You're pretty much going to go to jail for the crime that you committed, so on and so forth, right? And they don't talk about this in the media. But then when it's someone black, all of a sudden we want to throw out the victim card. We want to play, like racism is a way to get out of, pretty much a, collect, go, pass 200, or collect 200, pass, go, and make it seem like it's okay to go out here and be disruptive and be dysfunctional. I don't agree with that, right? And our culture today is complete shit. Black culture is shit compared to what it used to be. And if you're a black person on here, male or female, and you disagree, and you're going to get in the comment section and type all kind of dirty and nasty comments, go ahead. But our culture today is shit, right? And the way children are being raised, the environments we're raising children in today, the way the music you're listening to is complete shit. Just how you carry yourselves, right? Walking around with bonnets out in public, like, who does that, right? And it's not all areas. It's not every black person doing this, right? But it's like, carry yourself with common sense. Carry yourself with some respect. There's some black men and black women out there who would agree, who detest, some of the talking points and the debauchery and the dysfunctional behavior. It's like, if you can't carry yourself in a manner where you respect yourself, there's a problem with you. And the question is, it's not whether black conservatives hate themselves. It's when are black people on the far left that are woke gonna respect themselves and gonna respect each other and change the culture? Like, when are you gonna learn to understand it's okay to be educated? It's okay to be informed. It's okay not to listen to everything that's being put out. right? I got no family members who do the same thing. They got kids out of wedlock. God knows what they're doing with their lives. And I'm like, you sit around and you want to talk bad about white people or people of other races and so on and so forth. And I'm not saying they don't have dysfunction. I'm not, putting them on a pedestal because I've seen dysfunction no matter what group or race of people. But when I look at the values and the actions that go on within the community, it makes me question, one, how we got that far. And I know why we became the group or how things happened the way they did over time and over years. But you got a lot of angry women, angry dudes out here ready to fight the world. A lot of it due to how their parents raised them, right? You got, uh, young parents having kids nowadays, having babies, literally beating their babies to sleep. Throwing their kids away, putting them in trash cans, right? So on and so forth. You're dragging them all over the place. You don't have any time for them. You don't respect them. And then you wonder why, the community is the way it is. And it's not from a standpoint of judging, but it's the fact that you don't want to listen to understand, to accept change and be better. That's where a lot of people misinterpret. Every time you have a conversation, it becomes an argument of yelling and screaming, a yelling match versus listening to understand. And that's where I look at black conservatives and I take the time to understand why they feel the way they feel, because at the end of the day, it's like you're not listening to understand what they're saying, right? You already ostracized them because, one, you didn't like their nerdiness or how they were, right? And then two, when it comes to just their political beliefs and differences, they truly want what's better or what's best for black people. But it's like you step back and you question those who will talk about how much they hate themselves because they choose to believe a different set of values versus you because you want to be wallow in dysfunction. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't add up to me, right? So until you're ready to make change, you can't keep constantly blaming and pointing the finger at someone else and talk about them hating themselves. The person or people that hate themselves are the people that wallow in dysfunction, wallow in the worst of life circumstances, and choose not to do anything about it and better themselves. You choose to stay dumb and misinformed or ignorant, then that's your fault. That's no one else's fault but yours. Alright, but that is all I have to do for today's video. If you're a black conservative, I understand. I can relate to some of you guys' talking points. I respect your values and what you guys are about. If you're a black person that's out here carrying yourself with dignity and respect, and you got something good going on for yourself, stay away from dysfunctional people who have dysfunctional values and mean nothing good for you. That's all I can say. Thank you for watching, and remember, to be informed is not to be woke. Stay conscious, my friends.